this time and season when hard times are about, will our hearts still sing?
Hi guys, welcome to yet another amazing episode of Armored Things. If you've not seen the first episode, I would desire that you pause this video right now and click on the link on the screen. Today we're going to be having a very, very amazing conversation. The topic is, I assure you, is going to bless you. And on set with me today, I have two amazing persons. First off, I have a teenager representing you as always. Her name is Enyo. She's 16 years old. And one thing I celebrate greatly about her is her heart for God. You're welcome, ma.
Thank you.
And also, I have on set here somebody that I look up to. He's like a mentor, actually, not only to me, but even to, a lot of teenagers out there. We seem to be in the same space, and so we interface with the same set of teenagers, and I've heard a whole lot about him. His name is Daddy Ray. I call him Daddy Ray. Mm-hmm. Daddy Ray, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so let's just get right into it. Today we're going to be discussing a very, very important subject. In the last episode, we spoke about purpose, how that there is a big picture, there's a grand plan, and everybody is, important in what God wants to do with us, kingdom come, kingdom now, as it were. But then we end on the note that you cannot exactly know your purpose as a teenager without finding God, finding yourself in God, and finding your purpose in God. And so we've thought it necessary to discuss, the process of finding God, basically intimacy, delighting in God. So that's why you're here. You're welcome once again.
Thank you.
So I think I would start with you. I have observed you over the years, as it were. Yes, over the years. And I've come to see that you are actually somebody that just loves God. I can literally call you a Jesus lover. So how did it happen to you?
Okay, so, when I was 12 years old, I made the decision. Well, prior to that time, my dad had led me to Christ at the age of 4. And in between, I had given my life to Christ quite a number of times. But when I was 12, I decided that I actually wanted to take God seriously. I had times when maybe I would see a clip from a movie, or I would be in church and I would break down in tears and I would, oh God, I want to follow you. But then I'd find myself going back to my Egypt. But this time around, I decided that I wanted to take God seriously. So I just said, God, you know what? Let's do this. And so the journey started from there.
Okay, you decided. I'm going to get back to the steps you took after the decision. But let me ask you, sir. She said she decided. Is there really the power of choice when it comes to following God? Do you have to choose, or God just comes running after you? You just keep, there's a song like that, you just keep running after you. Is that how it plays out, or there's a power of choice?
Of course, God runs after, comes running after you, but you still have to make a choice. I said before you, life and death. With an advice, choose life. Mm-hmm. So if it's not necessary what you choose, if you just have to do with something happening on you without your choice, then I don't think there's going to be value or worth in whatsoever that relationship would produce, because two cannot work together except they be in agreement. So if the other one loves you, that's if God loves you and God is coming after you, which is, of course, what he does every time. But you have to make a choice in him. There have to come a time where you make a choice in God.
Did you hear that? There has to come a time when you make a choice in God. Okay, so moving on. Let's just, case study. Yeah. I have teenagers, I have interfaced with teenagers that have actually made a choice. They've seen the need for God. You've painted it clear to them. I need God. I need God so I can find purpose. But every now and then, it just seems like one leg in, 20 steps out, one step in, 20 steps out. So experientially, sir, because I know he has a longer journey with God, experientially, sir, have you experienced something like this? And how did you get to actually get to that point of intimacy, consistent intimacy with him?
Okay, I think one of the problems I've discovered with the teenagers is that they are trying to find purpose. So when they come to God, like when we give this formula of, find God, find purpose. So they come to God because they are trying to find purpose. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Like he's a businessman of some sort.
Exactly. So, but for me, experientially, I can't, I asked somebody one day, what do you think your purpose is? And funny answers, because some people believe that their purpose is to be a medical doctor. I don't even believe being a pastor is a purpose. Mm-hmm. All these gifts, all these, all the things that God put in us, the abilities He put in us, is to help fulfill His purpose. In fact, scriptures will say that we are called according to His purpose, not our purpose. So everything we do is to work out the purpose of God. So coming to God, first of all, the most important thing is intimacy. Love Him sufficiently enough. Some of us come to God with a distracted mind already. We are not coming to God for God, we are coming to God for purpose. Mm-hmm. And if He's the one that is at work, if He's the one that is doing something, then it's not about doing something all the time. We don't see a God who can just, bring you in and all He just wants to do, don't do anything for me. Just love me. A lot of teenagers don't feel fulfilled. They believe, and of course I don't blame them. It's the picture that have been painted to them. Somebody told them that you have to do something to show your love for God. But you cannot be able to do anything for God if you don't know God. So sometimes God just wants to spend time with you. Mm-hmm. Know Him, and you should be okay with it if for the rest of your life He never sends you to do anything and all He just needs from you is to be with Him.
Love Him.
If you do that, you will realize that in what we call purpose, even that staying with Him is fulfilling something that adds up to what God is trying to work.
Yeah, so staying with Him is a purpose in itself.
It's a purpose in itself.
Wow. Okay, thank you so much for that expose. Now, okay, I'm back to you and you. I know that you are a teenager, obviously, and I've interacted and interfaced with a lot of teenagers. And especially in the society we are in now, the superficiality of things, it's like an instant generation. If something is not yielding fast, in fact, if something is just not yielding fast, you just want to, everything that just tends to leave it and jump to the next thing. And the subject of intimacy with God is like you have to dig deep to actually find God. I'm talking experientially as well. You really have to dig deep to find God. So, for you, was it instantaneous or progressive? That's my first question to you. Then I would ask my backup question. So was it instant or, progressive?
Right. I would not say it was instant. It is a journey because the more you know God, the more you want more of Him. That is how it has been for me. So when I think what more could there be? This is probably it. He shows another side of Him. So it's like I used to tell myself that this journey with God, it's like I'm blindfolded and He's holding my hand and telling me to just trust Him and just walk with Him. And then each step of the way, I'm very uncertain. I'm very unsure of what's going to happen. But then He just keeps, His word is constantly there. It's constantly reassuring me that as long as my trust is in Him, everything is going to play out beautifully. So I'm journeying and I'm walking and I'm growing, and every time I discover a new part of God, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. There's really a lot more. Like, I'm saying a lot, but I don't know what the a lot is. So step by step, as I'm walking, I'm falling deeper and deeper in love with Him. Like, the intimacy is, the bond is getting stronger and the hunger is increasing day by day. So.
Okay, now you're making it look like it's just one love walk, I love you, talk your own kind of thing with God. So really, sincerely, have you had crises? Have you had burnout times? Or has it just been all sweet? You wake up every morning and like, he's singing a love song over you and all of that. Or are there times you're like, God, what is this? If I beg, just free me.
Well, yes. Actually, I would say that I recently had, I don't know what exactly to call it, but there was just this period where it felt like everything I was praying for, I wasn't seeing it. So as human beings, we like to see evidence of what we believe in. I like to, like, what makes my trust in something strong is when I see that
It is working.
it's working. I like to see. So I had been praying some prayers for quite a while, and then it felt like I was just praying over and over again, and then nothing was. I wasn't seeing. I felt like it wasn't yielding fruit, and many times I realized that the enemy comes to sit upon those kind of things, and then he tries to bring down your shield of faith so that he can really attack you, and then so many times there are a lot of things. It might not even be prayer that I've prayed and I'm not seeing. The funny thing is, all you need to do is hold on a bit longer. Because for me, I've seen how holding on just at the point where I realized with God, sometimes you just need to let go. You just need to ask God to take over. He should just come and just have his way. And then you would see how all you're trying, if you had just relaxed,
Being patient.
if you had just been patient, everything, he would have just worked everything out perfectly well, like even more than you had expected. So yeah, I have had a lot of, there are times when I'll be having conversations with God, and it's the type of conversation where I'm not sitting and he's sitting. He's sitting and I'm standing and I'm pacing and I'm letting him. No, this is not, it wasn't part of the plan. Like, why is this happening? This and this and this and all of that. But at the end of the day, with all the raging and all the turbulent waters within you, all the seas that are just crashing upon rocks, everything that is not going well, he just speaks his word. He just says, peace, be still, and everything comes through. There are times when the enemy would really bring a lot of discouragement, and then he would just remind you of something he has said before, and that's it.
Just be fine. Okay. The summary of it for me, you eventually mentioned it is the place of discouragement. You know, that is one of the barriers that, stops people from coming into, intimacy with God. We're going to take a short break now, and we're going to talk about more barriers that the Ray is here, and is going to, help us understand these barriers and how we can actually overcome them. So sit back, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. I'm sure you've been blessed by this episode so far. Please do not forget to like, comment, and share. Also subscribe to this channel. Also, do not forget to click on the notification bell. Thank you. Welcome back. We've had an amazing time thus far. If you have questions from what we've discussed, from earlier on, I would recommend that you put them in the comment section. If they are too private, just forward them to our email at armoredthings@gmail.com. Please don't forget to engage us on our social media pages at armoredthings on Instagram, at armoredthings on Facebook, and you would find the link to the other social media pages in the description below. Moving on, back to the subject of barriers. So we're going to continue with you, sir. What are the other barriers? You spoke about discouragement, but I want to believe that there are many other barriers, that stands in the way of our intimacy or in the way of our finding God. So do you want to expatiate on that, sir?
Well, there's so much to say about that, saying that the age that we are living in now is a very distracted age. There are many things going on, and the peer pressure and the spirit of the age makes that it is difficult for a teenager to focus outside distractions on TikTok, distractions. And there's a kind of value that these teenagers feel when they are part of, these activities. And these activities have a way of taking their time. Of course, intimacy needs time. You understand? In fact, they feel they are not in vogue. Is that the word?
Yeah, that's the word.
When they are not in, certain things. I was talking to some group of people, and I told them, I said, Enoch didn't have TikTok. He didn't have, there was no TV in his time. And he lived for how many years, Enoch, before he was taken?
Don't ask me.
Now, let's say he lived 100 years without knowing God. right? The remaining 200 years left, if he began his work at 150, in 100 years more, he could have had a walk with God that would make that he was taken. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Okay. Our time now is short. Our time really is very short. People barely live for 100 years. Now, in this 100 years, you have sleep time, you have distraction time. I even see that there's so much distraction in even religion now, that when people are looking for God, there's so much distraction that you look like you are looking for God, but you are not looking for God. You are looking for social media, Social media have got a way of rewarding us. Do you understand? And so we are distracted of the true intimacy, and we are deceived to think that because we have social media content, and we are doing social media things.
Some people even do their devotions on WhatsApp, You just go to your status and say, I've woken up today, Father Lord, bless me and keep me.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? And there's so much. The devil is not playing with us. Everything is going spiritual. In fact, the reason you wake up a lot of times and don't feel like pray or don't have desire towards God is because of certain energies that are being generated that affect you unconsciously, because our bodies function like antennas and they have the ability to pick signals of witnesses that have been raised by darkness. So you wake up and it's not normal that you wake up and you don't love God. A lot is happening. Do you understand? The people that make these social media things and all these things, I learned most of them, their children are not involved in these things.
Whoa!
Yes.
Did you hear that?
Their children they keep their children away. And sometimes it's for posterity. They don't want their children to be as useless. You are the victim of what they have made. And so they want to keep when they die. Sorry. So you become the victim, and when they die, they want to continue their wickedness. And so they want their children to be intelligent enough to be in the space where they can continue what they have started. And so their children will not be victims of what they began. So that darkness must continue. So there's so much distraction. Besides the distraction that has been created, there's a distraction that is powered spiritually.
Yeah, that's it. That's two barriers we've mentioned right now. Discouragement, then distraction. We cannot overemphasize and even underemphasize as well the subject of distraction. Yeah. And what you don't understand is that you can actually harness this social media to your own advantage. Yeah. And if you don't know how, that's why Hammer Things is here for you. Just engage our content, engage our conversations, and you'll find yourself actually growing with God and still on the social media page. Still on the subject of intimacy, I've come to realize that you cannot, be intimate. You cannot get your bond with somebody or something without actually an interest or a desire. And so in my head I'm just hearing delight. So experientially, how did it happen to you? How did you get to delight in God?
Okay, so like I stated earlier, I'm a pastor's daughter, and I grew up in a Christian home where you just have to put God first in everything you do. God just has to come first. So I lived a life of at some point it was kind of discomforting in a way, because I can't do something because my daddy says God. I can't do what my friends are doing because daddy says God. It was never for me God said. It was always daddy says God. Daddy says God. So I had given my life to Christ time without number. But then I had never really given my life to Christ. So I didn't know what it meant to delight in God. I didn't know what it meant to walk with God. I didn't know what it meant to actually love God. As a child, I don't know why, but I just loved God. But eventually, it got to a point where, God, this God. you seem to really, you're really a thorn in my flesh. I might just have to keep you aside when I leave this house, because I felt like, why can't I just be free? That's the deception now, that when you're in the world, you are free. There's really no freedom. So, I just kept on believing that eventually this God thing, I'll just put him aside and then face my life and then move forward and all of that. So I got to a point where I didn't really realize when this happened, but Prior to the time I decided to walk with God, I had a lot of dissatisfaction, aside the discomfort from trying to keep up with God and all of that, keep up with my father's instructions and God's instructions. I had there were times when I would not feel comfortable with where I was. I would not feel satisfied with where I was. At the age of 12, I didn't want to have anything to do with children. Like, not necessarily not want to have anything to do with children, but I just didn't want to be categorized as a child. I felt like, I'm not a child. Why would you call me a child? I mean, I didn't look at it from the point of view of God looks at me as something way more than just a child. I just thought it's just parents or adults just looking down on me. I felt very... So eventually the issue moved from being called a child to being called a teenager. I disliked it. Like, I felt insulted when he would call me. I didn't want to be called an adult, but I just felt, don't categorize me under anything. There was just constantly the next stage of my life that I would enter, I would not be satisfied with it. The next stage of my life I would enter, I would not be satisfied. But when I started walking with God, he took my eyes off all of the things, I honestly I don't know at what point that happened. But thinking about it now, it has been a long time since I complained about where I was. There's just this, when it comes to delighting in God, really, I found myself delighting in him. I just found myself enjoying doing things for God. I found myself, there are times when I would do certain things. I would maybe make a sacrifice or something. I won't even realize it. As discomforting as it was, it never hit me that this thing, you're inconveniencing yourself. It was when people would say it, I'd be like, oh, okay. It didn't really... So in God, there was just this peace, this satisfaction. Like, I didn't need any other thing. All I needed was God.
Wow.
He just summed everything up for me, basically.
I'm hearing, I don't know if you're hearing it, sir. I'm hearing that, or I would induce from what she said, that the more she knew God, the more it was easier to love him.
Yeah.
Because from your story and all of that, I'm just hearing, okay, she began to actually know God, and then, thank you, I'm blessed. I really am blessed. I want to hear experientially from you too, sir. How did you get to delight in God?
She really have said a lot of things, and coming from the fact that it looks like our lives are a kind of similar, I'll just, take a different route, but continue from what she said. I have discovered that spirits are really, really moved by sacrifice, and God is a spirit. And she began to talk about sacrifice. There is so much distraction, like I began to mention, and those distractions, they give us some kind of sense of value, even though that's what scriptures will call that by reason of the fall of Adam, that creation was subject to vanity. That means vainness. So people were doing things for nothingness. Nobody was living for the essence of creation. We're just living to fulfill a circle that does not add anything to eternity. So people can wake up every morning and do something that is not adding to anything, but it gives us some kind of value on this side. So if we can sacrifice those things to gain God, like most of us believe that we want to desire God, we are seeking God, but there's a friend there that does not honor God, and you're still keeping that person around, not because you want to even win the person, but the person makes you feel cool. Do you understand? I remember then in school, I used to love so much animations. I don't watch movies, but animations I can watch, so I have a lot of them. But there came a time in my life I had to delete my animations.
Oh.
Yes. My entire... God did not
sacrifice.
ask me to do that. God did not say, do it. But I discovered I'm spending so much time with this thing, and I love it. And I love God. But I just told myself two things will happen on this laptop. I have my Bibles on this laptop. I know studying was hard for me. So I just wanted to streamline every time I open my laptop. Let it be two things. I'm either listening to a message Or I'm not saying we must all do that, but the Spirit saw my sacrifice and it gave it an entrance to, because our desire for God is not natural. God has to empower us to even desire Him. He's the food, He's the hunger, so at the end of the day, it has to be by Him that you can desire Him. But there must be certain sacrifices from your realm, certain people you must cut out, do you get certain things that are pleasurable to your flesh, certain things that you must cut out to give God an entrance, to give you that food you need to eat to continue with Him. So sacrifice is just what I want to emphasize from what she said, that from those sacrifices, she received grace to love God the more. And there's something I've been saying about grace, that grace is given so that we can find grace. That there are graces in God, but if you don't take, because the grace of God is not just with the believer, the grace of God is also with the unbeliever, but it's with the unbeliever in a different form. The grace of God is with the unbeliever, convicting them of sin, convicting them of righteousness. But immediately they receive salvation, that same grace will become something else to the believer. So at this point, it's going to be strengthening the believer. It's going to be teaching the believer to say no to all form of ungodliness. Do you understand? Like, I think Paul will write to Titus, right?
Yeah.
So, and at that level, as you are receiving that form of grace, it's like eating beans. The beans you ate when you were small, is the reason you can eat food today. If you didn't grow by what you were given when you were younger, you wouldn't have been this. Do you understand? So we receive grace for grace. Is grace upon grace. But if we don't cut the distractions that makes it possible for us to receive the present grace, then it's going to be difficult for us to receive grace. So it's grace upon grace, grace upon grace. And we must cut out the distraction.
Okay, wow. I'm blessed. Because from what he has said, I've heard two things. I've heard value and I've heard grace. First of all, you have to value God to be able to make the sacrifices. You have to value God to be able to make the sacrifices that He demands, and even the one that He did not demand. Do you understand? And then also the place of grace. Grace. We are engraced. You are engraced to desire God. You are engraced to follow God, and you are engraced to find God and find purpose in God. I really don't want us to forget the subject of sin. I've interacted with a lot of teenagers, and really there's this desire to know God. But then somehow they just keep falling into these little sins, these big sins. Some are sexual, some are not sexual, some are a whole lot. And their parents are not really understanding. It's not something you can even walk up to your father and say, Dad, I'm struggling with this. How do I come? And then the devil takes hold of that, and then sits on the condemnation and the guilt, and they're not able to make progress in God. Do you have friends like that?
Yeah.
So what would you say to them?
I would say, come as you are. Come just as you are. Because I have learned that God is not there for the perfect. He is there to make people perfect. So be encouraged and know that God is there for you irrespective of your sinful life, the bad habits you have, the struggles that you may have daily. He is there for you. He's there to see you through. He's there to see you out of it. Talking to all the teenagers out there, God is really interested in your personal life. He doesn't just want to see you struggle and then eventually die with the struggles. No, He wants to be a part of your coming out of those struggles. So never feel condemned. Of course, the condemnation would come a lot. The enemy would use the sins committed in the past to tie you down. But have the understanding that is the reason why Christ came to die. He came to die because He saw that the world was perishing. He saw that mankind was being destroyed. And He came to redeem. He came to deliver. He came to make you new. So come with your burdens, with your baggages, whatever it is. One thing that God has reminded me of over and over again is to never feel too unworthy to come to the cross of Christ, because that is where you find wholeness. Once you just come there, once you get to His feet, He takes away everything and you are made new. I read a book And then I saw how a lady was, due to everything that has happened to her from her childhood, she eventually became a prostitute. She had a dream, and in her dream, she saw a man dressed in, he looked so beautiful. He looked like everything she could have ever wanted. And she was filthy. She had bruises all over. She was dressed in rags. And that was how she actually felt within her. And he walked up to her and he touched her. And she looked at her body, and there was just this joy. She couldn't explain it. She was just so happy because she was seeing that every form of filth that was upon her was no longer there. And she looked up and she saw that everything had been transferred to him. So that is literally how it is. He comes to take everything away. So come just as you are, with your pain, with your sin, your guilt, your shame. He really just wants to take it all away. That's all he wants from you. He wants to just be there for you. He wants it to be a you and him kind of thing. So I want to encourage everyone, every teenager out there, don't let what people say, because I realize that in the church these days, we have people, instead of encouraging teenagers, we have people condemning them.
That's a conversation for another day.
Even if it's not directly, they just somehow just say something and then leave the teenager or the person, the youth, feeling very battered, very shameful. So come as you are, naked and unashamed. Come with your fears, with your worries, and God will give you rest. Really, He will.
Daddy, do you have something to add to that?
Yes, there's when she spoke, I don't know. There are many things she said, but when she spoke, I just discovered that you have to be ignorant to condemn, because I don't think the teenagers are the way. That's why I began to talk about the spirit of the age. They are under an influence. Do you understand? And if you don't know that somebody is under an influence, you can be demanding something from someone that the person is not empowered to give. And that's going to be wickedness. It's like asking a man to give birth. Do you get what I'm trying to say? But if you come from the place of this thing is actually spiritual, there's a spirit of the age, then we enter into warfare to now begin to contend. So that when we approach the teenagers, we approach them from the place of warfare. And it's not just for the people that are approaching on behalf of the teenagers. The teenagers should leave knowing that their desires are not just natural, that somebody is sitting somewhere and shaping their desires and putting them in the state where they make a choice that is outside God. Nobody is free. Mm-hmm. So if they don't know that and they just believe it's a free world, I can make my choice. No, that's where the trap is. There's no freedom. Somebody is sitting now and planning the next 20 years, the next 30 years of your life. And all of us are waking up every morning. Somebody planned that there should be a time where people no more have prayer times. Mm-hmm. Somebody sat down and it's part of their agenda because they discovered that this is where, if you are able to shut people from intimacy with God, then there's no way they can access the glory of God. They cannot become everything God wants them to be. Do you understand? So I believe that is an ignorance issue to attack the teenagers from the point of, just condemn them and not. You have to be in the warfare. You have to teach them the warfare. You have to make them see, because everything that is a distraction is coming from the pit of hell. I can say this, that as good as, let me use the social media again, as good as it is a tool that Satan is using strongly, because the social media has its reward system. You can be able to lie to yourself and say, I'm doing ministry there. They can tell you if you are doing ministry by the number of likes you have and shares and all that. But that doesn't mean God has your record. Mm-hmm. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So maybe I'll stop there for our time.
Okay. I'm literally short of words, and I'll tell you why. I'm short of words because, first of all, I'm seeing beyond. Yes, so I'm seeing beyond the superficial. I'm seeing that, especially on the subject of sin, yes. I'm seeing that like it said, there is a contention, and that's what you need to realize as a teenager. When the devil plagues you with condemnation or he plagues you with guilt, it's because he wants to keep you entrapped. He wants to keep you in a spot, and he doesn't want you to journey into the knowledge of God, journey into intimacy with God. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to pick up your pen and your book right now. Write down whatever it is that is standing as a barrier, between you and the journey of the knowledge or intimacy with God. Pen them down. And then, if you're bold enough, send us an email. We're going to reach out to you personally and help you journey out of these things and come into a beautiful relationship with God. And let me just hint you, the next episode is going to blow your mind, because I tell you the truth, journeying with God as a teenager, it's not something you can actually do by yourself. And that is where the place of accountability comes in. So we're going to be discussing accountability. So keep your mind prepared. I tell you, it's a journey. We're coming from purpose, we're entering intimacy, and then we're journeying into accountability. Thank you so much, Enyo, for being on set. Thank you so much, Daddy Ray, for being on set. I must tell you the truth. I personally have been blessed, and I am too sure that our teenagers have been blessed as well. I hope you do not mind that at some point we might just reach out to you and tell you, we have questions from the things you have said and we want you to address them personally. So we could forward, a teenager to you or something. Hope you do not mind. And of course, you don't mind interacting with your fellow teenager, right? Okay. So thank you so much once again for coming on set. Yes, it is armored teens. Keep saying it until it becomes your mantra. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Do not forget to like. Do not forget to share. Do not forget to comment. Make your friends and your friends and the friends of your friends. Let's make this video go wide. Not because we want the publicity, as it were, because we want a lot of teenagers to come out of the grip of the enemy and actually begin a purposeful relationship with God. Till you see us next time, it's bye. My name is Bridget. Basically, bye.